Welcome back to Jesus Dojo. You've been sent out for 4 weeks to live out the way of Jesus. Now we're coming back, and we want to kick this off with one of the most important teachings that I think exists in discipleship. One of the things that we saw in Jesus' life over and over and over again as we went through the exercise. And I just want to kick us off with this, because as we return to talk about and share stories and admit failings about how we lived out the way of Jesus, there's something very, 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 very important to remember about the way of Jesus on a broad scale. So we're not going to zoom in on any particular passage. We're just going to look at the rhythm of Jesus' life, things that he went to do, and pull out one of the key teachings that are just crucial to Christianity. And it's this: you are not responsible for other people's output. You are not responsible for other people's output. You are only responsible for your input. You are only responsible for your input. And I'm talking specifically about discipleship, because there is something in our brains as human beings. I think it's how we were intended to operate in the Garden of Eden, is that when we do action A, for example, just a silly example, when I mix flour and milk and eggs and sugar and baking soda or whatever goes into cookies, and then I put it in the oven, I expect to get B. I expect to get chocolate chip cookies, tasty chocolate chip cookies. There's something in our wiring that thinks that, and we see this often in the natural world, because I believe that gives us a glimpse into how God originally created us, into how things would be in a perfect world where God reigned and ruled over all things, is that when we do action A, we expect, we long for a reasonable universe that gives us action B. And that often happens in the natural world, but what we know immediately when we get into a relationship with other people is that this rarely happens. Think about all the examples: friendship, parenting, siblings. If we, in relationship with other people, we could do everything right, and it will not necessarily contribute to the result that we want to see in that relationship or in that person. Now, here's something even more revolutionary as we think through in the context of discipleship. I just got to keep repeating that. We're talking about people's spiritual formation in Jesus, helping trust and follow Jesus. We are responsible for the input, not for their output. But that same principle is applied to you on a personal level. One of the most amazing, freeing things about Christianity is that it's not this religion that says you have to do this, this, and this, and then you get this result. It is not all about what you can do and what you can achieve, and this should be absolutely freeing for us. It is Jesus, it is the Spirit of God, it is God Himself living in and through us that gives us the result we want to see. Now, however, this is important. We are responsible for our input. Jesus and God and His Spirit will work the miracle inside of us, but we are responsible, and it's actually a huge gift that we get to partner with God in our own life transformation and in other people's life transformation, because it's basically just understanding and learning how to love one another and to love ourselves. We get to participate in that, and that's an awesome thing. But we can't produce the results we want to see, but we absolutely have to do the input. We have to give, and that's why we're asking this question of poured in. When we're seeing people following Jesus, what did Jesus pour into that relationship? What did He give to it? What was the expectation? Because then we learn at the feet of Jesus and say, oh, that's what Jesus poured into the relationship. This is what I should be doing too. But here's something very, very important. We would like, since we're always pouring stuff in, we expect this thing to fill up. But the truth is, in Christian doctrine, what we experience in our everyday lives is that we have a drain. And this is what is called sin. And so we're constantly being drained and running on empty and not doing the things that we know we should do, doing the things that we know we shouldn't, and that's just part of life. That's just part of journey of what the Bible calls sanctification. But the beautiful thing about it is that we know that we aren't going to be perfected in this day, that we're not going to be filled up to overflowing with the Spirit of God, and we're not going to have these perfect lives. We're not going to be able to, through our religious activities, produce this perfect result of a perfect life. We know that, and what's amazing about that is, and then as we slowly relinquish more of that, God will fill us up so much to fill up our cups in relationship with Him that we will eventually overflow, even as we do things in our lives that are sin-filled, that are distracting of our relationship with God, that are against Him. So in closing here, just explore this idea at your tables. It should be an absolutely freeing thing, because all of us are disciple makers. As we follow Jesus, we need to be helping other people follow us. But sometimes that can be intimidating or threatening in our minds. But it should be absolutely freeing to know that you don't have to produce the other people's results. You're only responsible for your input. And we can look no further than Jesus' life to see how just clear this is. Jesus Christ Himself, God incarnate, ruler, creator, sustainer of all things. He was 11 for 12 in His disciple making. Even He was not perfect. Even Jesus could not produce the output that He... And to be honest, you could make an argument that He was actually 0 for 12. That it wasn't until the day of Pentecost, it wasn't until the filling of the Holy Spirit of the disciples after Jesus' death and resurrection and the sending of the Spirit, it wasn't until they received the Spirit of God that the disciples were truly transformed and became the amazing, impactful leaders and disciple makers that we see in the New Testament and Acts. So be freed from that, but explore this idea of input versus output. What does it look like for us to be responsible for our contribution, but not live to the expectations that we have to produce a life change in others? Hopefully it's freeing for you. Continue to see this in the life of Jesus and let it set you free in your disciple making and in your personal discipleship.